Headphones. Ah! Okay. Literally. Hold up. Okay. So I've literally been running around. I didn't like my video yesterday. My eyelash is coming off. And I was like, I'm gonna make it up since it's gonna be our last political stream before their debate, Andrew and Destiny. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna just write out. Sorry, me and my milk stash. I'm just gonna write out what I think their strategies should be. And I was gonna do a video on that. But then I was like, oh, I'm always fucking late. I don't know if I'm gonna make it. I did, shockingly. But then Princess sent me a video. He's like, I think you should react to this for the debate. I think that's what I read while I was driving. And I was like, okay, we'll do that. So I have to pull up the video. I sent the link to myself. Hopefully, I don't know how to make sure that my phone and my computer are synced up. I forgot how to do that. No, we got it. Okay. So let me pull that up. Am I quiet? Destiny? Oh, my nails look so bad. I'm just a girl. Okay? I'm just a girl. Let me go put this. Is the music playing? Okay, so what was I saying? Okay, so Destiny. Take your meds, Tori. Jesus fucking Christ. Sorry, my dogs are not in here right now, and I feel like they're supposed to be. Okay, so Destiny versus Glenn Greenwald on Donald Trump in January 6th. Perfect. Okay, perfect. I don't know. Who's Glenn? I've seen that name before. Glenn. Rumble. He's not a YouTuber? Oh, shit. Is he radical or something? What the fuck? I need alcohol. So if you remember the video I did yesterday, or the day before, I forgot, where I talked about the affirmative, the negative, all those fun things. I think it was the 2 days ago, and then the next video we did, we were chilling. That's what we were doing. We were chilling. We were not working. What the hell? Do I have a cough? Do I have COVID? Moving on. Oh my God. I'm top heavy right now, okay? Jesus. So anyways, in the video, I was explaining the positions really basically. And then I explained the affirmative, introduction, constructive, whatever the fuck. Then you have your negative, introduction, constructive. And essentially, the person who's in the affirmative position in the debate with Andrew, it's going to be Destiny. And then in this one, let's see, actually. It's still Destiny in the affirmative. Duh. And then you got Glenn in the negative. So Destiny, in his introduction, he's going to start off with explaining what the proposition is, because I don't know if this is 5 months ago. I don't know what the topic is specifically. To be honest with you, I didn't know Destiny was doing these debates or debates on January 6th up until, like, I thought the one he's doing with Andrew was like the first one. So forgive me. I've been watching some of his live streams the past 2 days. Not very well, though, if I'm being honest, not very well. I couldn't tell you what the title was. But anyways, so the affirmative. Get your thoughts together. So the affirmative. Destiny starts off by explaining what the proposition is and the terms, just word by word. And then Glenn, I'm assuming, is going to have to either agree or disagree. Usually people agree. I don't know. It's boring. I want to see blood. Okay. You want to know, like coming in fucking hot. That's what I want to see. Okay. I want to see strategy. I want to see like thoughtful strategy, not the fucking straw man. Shut up. Like, what is that? That's a straw man. Shut up. Hi, Lolo. Come here, baby. I know. Good to see ya. So then they're going to agree. This was 5 months ago. I don't know what his position was or if anything changed. Come on, honey. Assuming that the proposition was January 6th, an insurrection. He agrees with that. Very much so. We pointed out last video, we got into the concept of capacity. Okay. If I die and somebody says, what did she do? Capacity. That's what I did. It's probably, no, I don't know if it's the most complicated topic that you could debate, but it's pretty up there. It's pretty complicated. If you hate Schmish-Morshin debates, you already know. Okay. You're like, what capacity? It goes with autonomy. Anyway. So what was I saying? They're going to agree, assuming, and then they move forward with their arguments. For the debate with Andrew and Destiny today, Andrew being the skeptic in the negative, I'm going to keep repeating it like that just so like you know it, you know? That's how I learned. And so we kind of talked a little bit about tactics he could do. If you remember, I said this very contradicting statement. I apologize. I knew it was contradicting as it was coming out. But it's like you need to use a broad language to narrow it down. What was it? Broad language in a vague way. You have to create broad, which sounds insane, but essentially, I explained how Destiny's going to want to keep the definition broad. Just remember that. Andrew's going to want to narrow it down. The reason that you're going to want to do that when you're talking about an insurrection is Destiny's position is a little delulu. Okay, I'm not going to be neutral anymore. I'm gonna keep it because we gotta get going. Okay, he's a little delulu. He's like the conspiracy side, if you will. So he's going to want to keep that definition broad. Why? Because Trump was never found guilty of doing the insurrection, whatever the fuck. Andrew's going to want to keep the definition as fucking narrow as he can because Destiny's going to try to give all these examples of how this is clearly Colorado said it. This is an insurrection. The best thing Andrew could do is to not, well, there's a couple of things, not concede and then wait until either the moderator's like, okay, we got to do the legal definition, which is not uncommon to do it that way. It kind of sounds shisty. It's like when the basketball team will like dribble the ball instead of trying to shoot when the timer's going out so that they can win just by default. It kind of feels the same way, but it's not mean to do it that way, or it's not dirty to do it that way. Another thing Andrew could do, he could frame it. Remember how I said typically the affirmative agrees with the proposition, negative typically disagrees, but there's certain circumstances where this gets flipped. And I was like, you don't have to worry about it. In terms of strategy, you do. You want to be really fucking good. This is how you do it. Okay. This is why I enjoy the negative position. It's probably my stronger position. And a lot of people don't like this one because it's complicated. Anyways, something that I would do if I was Andrew is I would enter the debate and right off the bat, like start defining the terms sneakily. It's like, well, Torrie, he's supposed to go first. He's in the affirmative. He sets the rules first, not on my fucking watch. If I do it, then it forces Destiny to have to play by my rules. A lot of people will have the affirmative go first, and then the negative will be like, no, I'm going to do this. And that's how I explained it. That's the easiest way to understand it. But if you want to go in and you want to fuck some shit up, you start with that. You start with that. Because then when you can frame the debate and you come in like super like chill, whatever, if you can frame the debate, you will I can force Destiny. How do I explain this? I can force Destiny into like, do you think it should be this or should it be that? That seems, people like choices. Okay. People like choices, but they're my choices. And my choices are going to be narrow, but I'm going to make it look like it's fucking broad. It's complicated. It's a thing though. That's it. Really, the negative position can't do much other than this. And that's the best way to do it. And let's say you fuck up and you're in the negative position. It doesn't matter. You're going to literally trigger the fuck out of them because you're posing the questions. And anytime that they even think to say something, they won't pick up on it typically. But if they do, they just get frustrated. I think it's one of the better ways, and it's fast, you know. But what are some other things? Because I wrote out a strategy. I wrote out Destiny strategy, which is essentially the same thing, except in the reverse. And he has the upper hand because he's technically starting. So it kind of looked like the debate on Fresh and Fit, where he framed everything. Whoever frames the debate controls everything else with the debate. All of it. The tone. Like, you know how I always say the one that looks less emotional comes across better? It doesn't matter your fans, your subscribers. It's fact. And so if you want to avoid getting triggered, if you're somebody who's triggered, try framing it. So there's a couple other things that you could do, but I guess we'll just do it as we go. But I think that's the best way. If this was confusing, go to my video before, okay, where I wasn't like pressured to go fast. Okay. Let me pull this up.
Today I'm hosting a debate between author and journalist Glenn Greenwald versus live streamer and political commentator Destiny. We're going to be debating about whether January 6th was an insurrection and Trump's role in it. So let's get started and lay some ground for the rest of the debate. Was what happened on January 6th an insurrection? And within your answer, can you define what an insurrection is? Glenn, can you start, and then we'll go to Destiny?
Yeah, I'm really glad that we started there because I do feel like we spent in that last debate a lot of time on the question of whether this was a coup or whether this was an insurrection. And I feel like these are more political terms of art than terms of science that have a concrete definition, which is one of the reasons why I think it's not only justifiable, but actually necessary to look at how these terms have been applied historically and in other contexts, not as a way of distracting from January 6th, but precisely to see whether or not the attempt to apply those terms to January 6th is consistent with how these terms are generally used, or whether it's just kind of a partisan attempt to create a narrative that serves the Democratic Party. So for me, I guess you kind of have to look at coup and insurrection a little bit differently. A coup is when some faction in society, either the faction that is already in power or the faction that is not in power but wants to be in power, mounts some very credible and serious attempt, almost always using force or the threat of force, people who are a militia or the actual military in order to seize power illegitimately outside of the legal structure, using violence or the threat of violence in order to do so. An insurrection just simply, I think, implies that there's a faction domestically that has launched a serious rebellion, a serious attempt to seize power in that country, again, using extrajudicial, extra legal means that in almost all cases involves either the use of force or the threat of force. You may be able to imagine a situation where the use of force or the threat of force is not necessary for an insurrection, but I think it's extremely difficult to imagine such a case. But in general, that's how the terms are used. And then you have these kind of subsidiary terms that are very new, that are kind of retreats from those terms, like legislative coup or soft coup, that, as I said, is a way to kind of put it into the general category of coup and insurrection without actually calling it one. And that typically involves the illegitimate use of a legal process or some other means that's still extrajudicial, contrary to the law, without actually using force or the threat of force to achieve those ends.
Well, what about faking votes?
I like Glenn's his name. I like the way that he laid it out. So essentially, he's really narrowing it down to, well, first he started off with explaining the difference between insurrection and a coup, which was eloquent. I like when people start in that way, but he starts to get really specific. Remember how I said he's got to narrow that definition down. He just did that. Then he goes on to explain the legal version of it, which is good. That's what I was saying, that the moderator will end up choosing if you keep fighting for however long, just by default. So that's good. Used a historical example. Okay. To be honest with you, this conversation involves so many fucking historical examples, and I'm not convinced of a good one for it. If I hear the Whiskey Rebellion one more time, I'm throwing myself through the fucking wall. It's like really bothering me. And I actually went into ChatGPT last night and I was like, how, and what not recent, and I was like, in American history, give me an example of something that would fall under insurrection. And it kept coming up with this Whiskey Rebellion. I was like, what the fuck is this from? Like, am I missing something? Has anybody else heard of this? I remember there was a book on it, but I don't remember it being important.
What about what?
What about faking votes? Would that be counted?
Oh, good moderator. So now the moderator wants to get more specific. Do they know each other? It's like, what about faking votes? That was a good time to say that. Wow. That one question. Good job, Prawn Sauce. What the fuck? That one question is going to make it simple throughout the whole thing. That was really good. I'm shocked. When the moderators speak, it doesn't seem like that big of a deal, but if you've been listening to, or even just thinking about the insurrection debate or whatever, it's like, was it a deliberate effort to overthrow the government? What about the votes? Does that count? Where does that fall under? Coup?
Sorry.
Right. If you try to fake votes, would that be counted as an insurrection, or you took it just force, really?
Fake votes?
Yeah.
I mean, if you were to try and steal an election using fraud, I don't really think that's the sort of thing that we have in the past described as either an insurrection or a coup. That's just more stealing an election. And that's why I think it's so important.
That's awesome.
To distinguish between actually when force is actually involved or invoked, or the threat of violence is invoked, precisely because there are so many other ways to seize power illegitimately that fall short of being a coup or insurrection. That's actually a good example of one, which would be fabricating votes or throwing away valid votes or fabricating invalid votes as a means of winning an election illegitimately.
The issue is that to prove that it was like somebody like Trump would be very difficult. Like it would become an entire conspiracy
Destiny,
with like the
what's your thoughts?
officials.
Yeah, I think I'm happy to almost run with Glenn's definition here, because I think January 6th pretty squarely and easily falls within that. But I guess the two definitions I would offer up are the Colorado Supreme Court. They concluded that an insurrection, as used in...
So just in terms of debate, if you agree with his, you move on. No need to give your other shit, because that people are just going to see that as opportunistic. It's one thing if the roles were reversed, though, because then you're having the back and forth. Like, if you accept the terms, that's it. Uh-oh. Did he just get set up by this guy? How did he do that?
Section 3 is 1, a public use of force or a threat of force, 2, by a group of people, and 3, in order to hinder or prevent the execution of the Constitution of the United States.
So Destiny's cherry picking by saying we got one state that says this is this. I don't even know, whatever. It's like, just right away, assuming I know fucking nothing. Why are you using one state? And if it's one state that's implementing these things, like, it's just small. If you're trying to say that people are overthrowing the government, why did you go there? Because it's the best sounding. We'll listen. I don't know. I'm just posing questions.
In Paulson and Baud's paper, they go over broader definitions, but they more or less say the same thing in more words. I mean, we can read from them, and they would say that insurrection is best understood as concerted, forcible resistance to the authority of government to execute the laws in at least some significant...
Destiny is going to want to keep it broad, so I don't know why he said that. Don't tell your opponent that. Like, he specifically was making it narrow without saying narrow, you know?
Respect. So I would say that like an insurrection is probably more than being upset at a police officer and saying like, no, I'm not going to, get a ticket and running away. Probably has to involve a group of people who are making a concerted effort to like resist the good faith execution of law.
Listen, an insurrection to me, because it's like violence and it's a deliberate organized group, whatever. Like all I can think about is the Addams Family, the Indian scene at the camp. Which, like, the Thanksgiving thing, it's like that to me is an insurrection. Tying them up, starting shit on fire, like people. It's like, come on. Right now, it's like, not really. Because if we don't all agree and we're kind of just, we can't even really pinpoint it, it's probably not obvious.
From the federal government in this case. And I think January 6th with... Trump's plan to circumvent the electoral process with false electors, the actual day of events where Trump gives a huge speech. He sends a whole bunch of people down to the Capitol, ostensibly to... Are
we going to talk? Like, okay, I'll let him finish.
To protest the certification of the vote.
Okay, so he just said that he said to protest whatever. Protest assuming that it's peaceful, by definition. Legally, it's supposed to be, right? If it was a riot, he would have said incited riots, whatever. But essentially, the thing that keeps fucking me up, and I didn't call it out yesterday or the day before, it's like when you look at the timeline of events, people were weren't they storming the Capitol? And I'm asking, but I already know the answer. They were storming the Capitol before the speech was even finished. So that already sounds like it was in the hands of others. Like, because if it was an organized, deliberate thing, they would all do it at the same time, and it probably would be after the speech. Is it possible that he said, in some regard, to go earlier? Maybe, but we also don't have proof that he was involved with other groups.
Where the people at the Capitol engage in violence in order to prevent Congress from certifying the vote. And then when the people at the Capitol engaged in violence succeeded in preventing the certification of the vote for some number of hours, and then were finally cleared away, I would say that whatever we call an insurrection or whatever definition
But
we use, all of the
that's his opinion. That was Donald Trump's goal. Am I wrong? No, I'm right. Like, it's this constant. Remember, I said yesterday, and all the time on my channel, be very cautious before you say you know why somebody did something. It fucking plagues me in my whole life. But this is an instance of it. You might think that's what somebody did, and maybe they get brought to court. But when it comes out that that's not what they found, you can't just keep saying it as evidence. Really, really not good. Not strong evidence, in my opinion.
events here are bullseye, like an insurrection.
Bullseye? That's our bullseye? Destiny. No. With all due respect, is Destiny on the spectrum? Because after listening to so many fucking clips of Destiny, Ben Shapiro, and somebody else. It wasn't Destiny, it was somebody else. It's like, it seems, and this is a biased sounding whatever, but it seems like they're like anybody who's on a radical side, like far left, far right, it seems like they take things very literally. Like, you read a definition, those things seem to fit, and it's like, but they don't, right? Like, and we'll keep going. Shut up, bitch.
So can I ask a question? I don't want to usurp your role. I don't know how you want to conduct it, but if you don't mind, I'd like to just ask kind of follow-up question to that. The question I have for you then, Destiny, is there any requirement that it actually poses a credible or a serious threat to succeed in its aim? So, for example,
that was a really good question.
Imagine that Donald Trump wins the election in November, as most polls predict that he will, at least as of now. And let's say that you have one or two people inside the U.S. government who are kind of career civil servants who view Trump as such a great threat to all things decent in the United States, and they go to the Capitol and they're armed with knives, and they stand outside and they say, we have knives and we demand that Donald Trump be removed from the White House and the Congress vote to impeach him immediately. And
guys, hold the fuck up. Remember yesterday how I was like, remember the instance with me, foot coming through the door, butcher's knife, on the phone with 911, like, he's almost in here, are you guys coming? I'm sorry, ma'am, has he kicked you or stabbed you yet? Call us back if anything changes. Light bulb moment. Why? Because they're not going to dispatch anybody. They knew it was like a mental health call, but it doesn't matter. They have to actually commit the act before they will send help, which is fucking nuts. If it wasn't a mental health call, though, they'd be there like that. Crazy. But it's so interesting. He's like, if they stand outside the Capitol with knives saying, I'm like,
reinstall Joe Biden because we think he's the legitimate president. Would that, in the history books, is something that you would then call a coup or an attempted coup or an insurrection?
I mean, you might call it one, but I think it would be so minor and it would be so silly that I don't know if we would necessarily refer to it as such. For instance, like we could concoct a conspiracy to murder thing where I make a plan that's so ridiculous with another person that we're going to go and buy, I guess, snow, and we're going to pour it down somebody's roof until it all melts and the person drowns and dies. I'm like, and we actually go and buy the stuff and we go to the house and take steps towards the crime, but it's such a silly crime. I don't know if you'd call it that. I'm sure we could find cases like really far away on the peripheral, on the edge, but with January 6th, I think we're in a bullseye definition of whatever we would call insurrection or attempted coup or rebellion.
So I think the reason why I asked that is, I think actually the extent of the threat, like the credibility or the gravity of the threat, is absolutely critical to whether or not in any other instance we would be calling something like this a coup or an attempted coup. Because if you look at January 6th, although you did have more than two people doing the sort of thing that I just described, and I asked a ridiculous example to try and understand whether you would at least concede that it requires some kind of significant or quantitatively impressive attempt to actually seize control from the legal means of power. What you had on January 6th is a hodgepodge of people, which, according to the federal government itself, had only a small minority of people who actually use violence of any kind. There's only something like 10% or 8%, depending on how you counted the number of people charged who are even accused of having used violence at all. And it's a pretty broad definition for using violence, like anyone who got near any attempt to hit a police officer or to push a police officer aside got put in that violent category. So I'm at a very small.
Okay, their debate started. So we're going to go over there now. Let me stop this. And go over here. Should we do it on, who's showing it? Let's do it on Andrew's. Gotta get a thumbnail, y'all. Like the video if you haven't liked it already. Because I can't go in on the live thing and be like, do you like it or not? Because it says it can't right now for some reason. Here we go.
And that this needed to
We're going to start it from here.
There we're there. So, but you are definitely up on, and I'm whoever's speaking, I always make them the main person. So, Destiny, I'm going to put, this is round one. I'm going to put 3 minutes on the clock for you. Are you ready?
Yeah.
All right, go ahead, brother.
So I think my definition is pretty clear. There is an assemblage. There's a clear resistance to the implementation or the execution of some federal law. The resistance has an aim to make use of force or intimidation, and it's gathered for a particular public purpose. BLM almost automatically fails on the fact that these were not usually demonstrations against federal law. I don't know the federal law or the federal thing that was being resisted by BLM. But again, I'm happy to dive into any particular BLM supposed insurrection or riot if you'd like. But again, I mean, that has nothing to do with January 6th. And if you want, then you see that entire argument, and we can move on to analyzing individual BLM instances. But again, you'd have to show that there was some implementation or carrying out of some federal function for it to be an insurrection against the United States government. States might have their own definitions of state insurrections. I'm unaware of any. So to say again, my definition of insurrection, like very clearly has 4 elements. If you want to suggest an alternate definition that you feel more accurately comports with what you would consider an insurrection to be, that's fine. But we can't just say that it's nebulous and there is no definition when we have we've got references made in our Constitution and in our federal criminal code to insurrection. That doesn't make any sense. We can complain about people being charged with an insurrection or not.
Okay, maybe I should start it earlier.
About this shit from these people. Tired of it. Tired of it.
Let's see.
A 5-minute opening, 3 3-minute rounds where no one is interrupted. Then round 4 and 5, we'll do 5 minutes open. Is that cool?
Yep, that's fine.
All right, awesome. As long as it's fair for both parties, man. I'm happy to host this, dude. It's good to see you.
Well, really glad that you are hosting it for us. Much appreciated. How's life treating everybody in the studio, man?
Great, bro. As you guys know, we don't normally film on Thursdays, but when a homie hits me up and says, "Hey, man, can you do me a solid?" You already know it's going to be a yes. So
yeah. Well, I'm glad that that we can roll over. Oh, by the way, everybody who's currently in the Crucible audience, I think we're over 5K right now. Make sure you go over and show some love to the moderating team. They all got together on their day off to make sure that this happened. I would actually prefer, if you were going to send in the supers, to send it their way this evening. Putting that together is not an easy thing to do.
Destiny, what's up, man? How are you?
Hi, what's up? I'm live. Don't say anything crazy.
No, I won't. Andrew's live too. So just want to make sure, just so it's fair for everybody. So, Destiny, this is what I'm thinking the breakdown is, and let me know if you disagree. We'll give each party 5 minutes to make an opening statement, introduce themselves, identify their stance, all that stuff. And then we'll do 3 3-minute rounds where each of you speak uninterrupted. And then we'll do 2 5-minute rounds where it's open dialogue between the 2 of you. So 5 rounds in total. And then, and that's pretty much it. So 5-minute opening, 3 3-minute rounds where you're not interrupted. Same thing with the opening. And then 2 5-minute rounds where it's open dialogue between the 2 of you. Is that fair?
That sounds good to me.
Sure. Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
And then what I also was thinking is we'll quickly in the beginning identify the definition of insurrection. I have here a violent uprising against an authority or government. Is that agreed upon definition?
I imagine the definition is probably going to be a good chunk of the conversation. I would imagine.
That's why, because I pulled it right from Google. I typed in insurrection, and this is specifically what Google
Go,
uses.
Myron.
I'm not sure that either of us are going to be able to agree on the outset to a definition. Does that seem right to you, Destiny?
We will.
Okay.
I think. Or I think we have to, but
They watch my.
Oh, I mean,
review.
yeah. Well, I mean, maybe, but I'm just saying on the outset here, if he wants us to.
on the outset at the beginning, no, we won't.
Yeah,
we won't. Not
I
before
don't.
the debate.
I
That's
don't
gonna
think
a
we'll
big-
be able to. Yeah. Correct.
Yeah.
So you guys don't want to use a violent uprising against an authority or government?
I don't think that we would be able to agree on that right at the outset. So I think that some of this in the beginning will be us coming to some agreement with that. Does that sound correct to you, Destiny?
Probably, yeah. That'll
Yeah.
be part of the debate.
Yeah, I think that's right.
That's fine. I guess you guys can make that in your opening statements then.
Okay.
But for the audience that's watching, this is what Google says, but obviously you guys can go ahead and interpret
Myron.
your opening statement. And then Bills, how are we looking as far as like going live on our side so that we can broadcast this? Because I know they're live on their sides.
Give me 1 minute.
All right, give us 1 minute, guys, and we'll get this thing going. Bills is just setting up the OBS and everything else like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
No problem.
yeah, I could do an intro and all that. Yeah, I can do that. What was that? Bill? No? Yeah, I sent you. Oh, Destiny, do you? Yeah, three things in the Telegram chat. Destiny, do you have any documents or videos that you want me to have on hand so that I can play them for you? I know Andrew had a few, so I want to make sure I extend that courtesy to you as well.
Not that I can think of right now. No.
Okay. If something comes up, please let me know, and we'll pull it up on our side for you.
Does he have your Telegram?
Destiny has my direct number if he needs me. But yeah, if you think of something, Destiny, and it's a return to speak or whatever within that 3 minutes, let me know, and I'll have my guys in the back research it and pull it up for you.
Okay.
Same with you, Andrew, if you guys want that.
Yeah,
During your-
no problem. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
'cause it's your
Did
it's
they
your 3
talk
minutes, so you
beforehand?
can spend it however you like, and we'll do our best to quickly pull up something if you guys need it.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Cool.
Do you think the majority of the people?
Yeah, that was yeah.
Gotcha.
So sorry about that, guys. But other than that, Destiny, good to see you, bro. I'm glad that you're still here with us, man.
I am still barely alive, but I'm still here. Yeah.
Oh man, dude. Going crazy on Twitter, man. It's crazy.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh man.
Are you sick? Are you okay?
Yeah, I've had to. I went to the RNC and I just came down with a bug ever since. I sound like all fucking congested and shit.
It's a lot better now, though.
Yeah, it's way better than before. It was worse than this. I went ahead and commingled with all the people you hate. They made me sick. Destiny.
Nice. Well, that's what happens because they were all unvaxxed, you know.
Oh, my.
Oh man.
At least we know.
Well, if he was at the RNC, then they probably were all vaxxed, actually. Yes.
Yeah, depending on how far you go. Yeah, true.
All right, so guys,
Why is it
I'll
so slow on my
we'll
end?
start at the stream and I'll say what's up, guys. I'll do a quick little. You know what, man? Honestly, bro, we don't even got to play the intro music or anything like that. I'll just we'll just go live, and then I'll you know what I'm saying, do a quick little intro, and then I'll kind of make some quick announcements. Then
Wait, are they behind the scenes?
my camera, yeah. Just keep it on camera too for me, and then we'll be good. Yeah, that's good. Shout out to Destiny and Andrew Wilson's audience. You guys are seeing like the behind the scenes of how we get ready before a show.
It's so quiet and awkward.
Well, I
Man.
appreciate you moderating at such short notice. It's very kind of you to do.
Bro, of course, man. You guys are both the homie with both you guys, so it's totally cool. Don't mind it at all.
Why is this acting up?
And I see some familiar names in this chat, too.
Yeah,
They know who they is.
yeah. So
All right. I'm going to start up the live now.
you guys start the live now. All right, cool. So I won't even do my intro, guys. Like normally with the music and all that shit, I'm just gonna say, "What's up, guys? Welcome to Fresh Event Podcast. I'm here with Destiny and Andrew Wilson. Boom. We'll do some quick announcements, and then I'll just turn. Oh, who wants to go first? Andrew or Destiny?
I'll open first if Destiny has no problem with that.
Sure.
Yeah,
Squeeze.
I feel like that's fair because I was the challenger.
All right.
Uh-oh.
Destiny's okay with that. So, what I'll
Genius. Genius. Oh, we know where it's gonna go. Okay, so if you're just joining, since Andrew's in the negative position, he's gonna go first. He's gonna get to set the tone and the frame of it.
do is I'll also give you guys like a 30-second warning. So so you guys kind of know, hey, try to wrap it up if you can.
Hi, David.
And I'll time each round. So the first one, the 5 minutes, the opening statement will be 5 minutes.
Waiting on the confirmation.
Just waiting on the confirmations. Okay.
You got my friend Big Mo in studio or what?
Yeah, he's here.
Tell him
They
I
both-
said what's up.
Because they knew what we were doing, so like, nah, we don't want to fuck this one up, so we're both gonna come down.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Refreshing, making sure I get confirmation.
We started the stream. We're just waiting for it to like pop up on all the different platforms.
Sure.
I think we're live up on YouTube now.
I see YouTube.
YouTube's up. Okay. And then once we're go on all of them, I'll make the intro. Welcome, guys. Roll in when you guys can.
Waiting on locals in Rumble.
Okay.
Oh, I think I see locals. Right when I said that. That means Rumble should be. All right.
We're live on all of them? Okay. All right, guys. What's up? Welcome to the front. Oh,
Let's do the 3 to 1.
Gotta
get 3,
go ahead.
2, 1.
All right, and we are live. What's up, guys? Welcome to the Fresh Air Podcast, man. I'm joined by two people that I call my buddies, good guys, contrary to what people might say. Andrew Wilson and Destiny. Today, I'm gonna be hosting a debate between them on was January 6th an insurrection? Okay, the way this debate is going to go is we're going to have opening statements by both parties for 5 minutes, where they're going to, identify their arguments, their stance, who they are, introduce themselves to you, etc. That's going to be 5 minutes uninterrupted. Then we're going to have 3 minutes where each of them are going to be able to lodge their arguments for 3 rounds of that for 3 minutes, going back and forth. And then we're going to have 2 rounds where it's an open 5-minute dialogue. I'll be timing each round, staying as a
I'm
neutral
making
moderator.
my thumbnail.
So guys, if
Sorry.
you're not familiar with Destiny or Andrew Wilson, please go subscribe to both their channels. I'm cool with both these guys. Obviously we don't agree on everything, but I respect both these guys as skilled debaters, and they're good colleagues of mine. So please go check out their channels on YouTube and on Rumble and all the platforms that they're on. Domini Liberal on Twitter, the Paleo Christ. Is it the Paleo Christ Con on
Just
on
Paleo ChristCon, yeah.
Yeah, on X. So go check them out on all the platforms, guys. I'm happy to be able to host this debate. So other than that, we're live on all platforms, YouTube, Rumble, etc. Check us out on rumble.com/freshofit. And Andrew, I will turn it to you to go ahead and start with opening statements, and I'll start the timer.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you to the entire Fresh and Fit audience for coming out, and to DGG as well. We're here today to debate if the events of the January 6th Capitol riots were an insurrection or if they weren't. Simple. It's a simple debate prompt. They either were or they weren't. Looking into the idea of insurrection itself, it isn't exactly clear what the meaning of it is. It does always seem to be tied together with violence or some will to overthrow a government, law, government system, government itself, or resistance to that law, or something akin to this. The Supreme Court hasn't given us any guidance on this as they wash their hands of it, and to date, not a single person has been charged or convicted of insurrection who participated in any of the J6 rioting. This includes Donald Trump himself, who was acquitted of inciting insurrection.
Notice the language he's using and the way that he's framing it to be obviously something that Destiny would agree with, right? Unexpected. That's never good if you're in a debate.
Would think, with no clear guidance of what an insurrection is, a lack of anybody being prosecuted for this supposed insurrection who participated, and a president acquitted of inciting one, that would be that. The events of January 6th were a protest that turned into a riot. This is nothing new. Democrats do it all the time. In fact, Destiny in 2021 completely agreed with my current assessment. Please, if you don't mind, play clip 1.
Okay, we will make that available to you. Bills is going to roll it up right now. and I will go ahead and give you an extra 5 seconds just on your thing, just because. Okay, go ahead. Play the video, please. Bills.
If you think the majority of the people there were actually trying to do that, and all they managed to do was like kill, like one woman got shot by the cops, you're fucking delusional. I think most of the people probably showed up to protest because they were fucking mad, and then shit got riled up. There were probably, almost for sure, I would say, some genuine bad actors there that had fantasies of invading the fucking Capitol and shit. Now, I think I heard from the FBI that it was like 5% or less had some plan to do something. Even that number sounds a little bit high, because 5% of however many thousand people, there's a lot of people. But I don't think every single person who went there, their goal was to destroy the White House or destroy the Capitol building and take it over. But because if they were, we would have saw way more shit.
Okay.
Now, just so you know, I have no visual on my end when those play, and I'd appreciate it if you guys could put the visual up on my end as well.
Okay.
In fact, Destiny even agrees such rioting and political violence is part of the democratic process, akin to voting, he says. He said this to justify the George Floyd or BLM riots, that such riots were just one side of the Democrat coin and baked in to our Democrat process. The tail's in and just the other half of democracy, he says. Of course, he later denied this. Please play clip 2.
Okay. And we'll get this so that you can see it. Just 1 second. I'm going to stop the clock while we're right now, we're 2 minutes and 40 seconds in. Oh, hold on, Bills. I'm going to start the clock once we back up once, to be fair here. Once the clip is up. Can you see it, Andrew?
I cannot see the clip, no, on my end.
He's going to make it visible to you here in a second.
Great.
And I stopped the clock just so everybody knows. Bear with us, guys. We're using a million different things, OBS, Zoom, all this other stuff. Shout out to Bills in the back, working hard. Can you
so
see
pretty much the angle that Andrew is taking it is, so it's okay when, or it's not okay if my side does it, but it's always okay when your side does it, which it's true. It's at least from what I've gathered. I haven't heard all of it, so maybe Destiny's opinion has evolved, and I could admit I don't know if that's true or not. But essentially, it's like, God forbid. Well, look at it this way: there's no proof that he actually incited an insurrection, whatever. He didn't. He was acquitted on it. So at this point, it's like Destiny's afraid of ghosts. And you're like, well, Trump has said some crazy shit, but he hasn't, like, he hasn't been convicted of it. And that's the gray area. So like, something I noticed is people will try to compare him to Schmittler, and the difference is he didn't kill 6 million. You know what I mean? Like, but it's a constant binary black and white thinking to be like, well, he seems like that, and he's a threat to our Constitution, our democracy, blah, blah, blah. And we know that if he got elected, it'd be cool for his side to protest. It's funny, but it's not funny. It's like, sometimes they view us over here like we're these tyrannical, ban everything, get rid of this, get rid of that. Like, we are like these barbaric, like, not barbaric, like authoritative, loving, mindless fucks. And we're over here just trying to say, you're brainwashed. You're brainwashed. So, like, be normal, but they're not being normal. So yeah, that's my commentary right now.
You know,
I can see
Love
something.
you.
There we go. Perfect.
okay. So
And when I say the left, just because I know I might forget, when I say the left, I am talking about on YouTube, those that say like right wingers are those conservatives. They're just like trying to take women's rights away and all that shit. Like, I'm just doing it back at them. That's all. Okay.
hold the clip now. I'm going to start the clock back up. Bills, go ahead.
Disingenuous sack of shit. Because, as I've debated you in the past, you started talking before January 6th ever occurred about how the BLM riots were justified. It was just the other side of the coin of voting. Of course, once you realized that grip wouldn't do as well for you when you were debating the Rittenhouse shit, you completely 180'd your position.
Did I ever, hold on, did I ever say writing is the other side of the coin of voting?
Probably did.
That's a really strange statement I did. If I did, that's a really strange statement, but go ahead, okay.
Try to find the clip.
Activism and riots are one side of the coin and the other side is voting. I think there's conspiratorial at all. I think that affecting political change like this is fine. Like that's part of the goal. Like activism and riots are one side of the coin and the other side is voting.
Whew. So,
this in 20 seconds in. Go ahead.
So why the radical change of heart on this topic from Destiny? This complete 180? Well, that's simple. He hates Donald Trump. A simple motivation, but at least understandable. He also hates Trump supporters. In order for him to justify that he wants them all to be unalived, he needs to brand them all as traitors and insurrectionists. In this way, he can build a case that Trump supporters are evil, and so it is justified to use violence against them. To recap that, Trump supporters are evil, therefore anything which happens to them is fucking good. Fine. Going so far as to say is
the reason that evil thing, that's going to come up later. Frame him as evil, big bad wolf, the evil Santa Claus, like it's your delusion. Ooh.
His friend Pisco. The only reason he wouldn't have liked Trump to have been unalived by this would-be assassin is because it would motivate Republicans. This, of course, gives us an entailment that if it wouldn't motivate Trump supporters, he would be fine with Trump having met his demise in this assassination attempt. And this is the last clip. Play clip 3, please, and then I'll wrap this up.
Okay, we're 4 minutes and 20 seconds in, and we're going to stop the watch while we pull this up. Approximately 4:24 seconds, but I'm adding another 5 from the first clip and how we were pulling it up. So
far beyond that. So far.
Okay. I'll start the clock back up once we roll the clip. Can you see it, guys? Can you see it, Andrew? Oh, sorry. He's screen sharing it right now. Give us 1 second. We'll pull it up. Thank you, audience, and thank you guys for bearing with us here. Many things going on. We want to make sure that Andrew can see it as well as the audience.
Yep, I can see it.
You can see it? Okay. Bills, go ahead. I'll start the timer back up.
So far beyond that. So far giving a fuck beyond any of these fucking losers. But go ahead. Yeah, fine.
Can I ask you a question? So, and you don't have to answer if you want to.
Yeah.
Do you wish the attempt had been successful?
Do I wish that the attempt had been successful? Fuck, am I even allowed to say anything about that?
You don't have to answer that.
Here's what I'll say. This is what I will say. I don't know, because I'm trying to Fed post or whatever. Here's what I will say.
Violent.
A failed attempt is probably the worst outcome of anything that could have happened. I'll say that much.
I'm afraid of Destiny, not Trump.
I disagree. I think a successful attempt, if that had happened.
Well, actually, hold on. We might agree. The successful attempt, or
Stop real quick,
attempt, it would be an attempt at that point. The successful,
real quick. So, guys, we just hit pretty much the 5-minute mark. Destiny, if you're okay with it, I can let this kind of go on another minute or so, and I'll afford you an extra minute and give you 6. Are you okay?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can learn about this thing out, man.
Okay. All right. So we'll complete this out. I'll time it. Whatever I gave Andrew, I will give to you as well on your opening statements if you're okay with that. Go ahead, Bills. Roll the clip back. Thank you, Destiny.
Whatever, might be the worst thing that happened. But if it was the worst thing, it would just because of like the country's reaction afterwards, basically, which is possible. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
And another strategy that might be coming up is something like at the end of it, Destiny will say, you can't just like pull clips out of context. And then it's going to be like, exactly. Oh, just an idea.
So ultimately, Destiny needs to be able to provide us with what an insurrection actually is, an actual working legal definition or even a personal one, so we can work off of that to understand the mindset of a person who claims this was an insurrection, even as nobody ultimately is prosecuted for an insurrection.
Because that framework will have to be cut and dry if you put another person in it and not Trump. Say as if you put somebody that they like.
He, to date, hasn't done this for the same reason the Supreme Court and higher courts won't. If they do define it strictly and categorize it strictly, then it's likely Democrats and even Republicans are engaging in them all the time. Nonstop, in fact. I am, in fact, willing to, in the ultimate spirit of good faith, concede that if Destiny just can't really define an insurrection or tell us what goes into that category and not into the category of a riot, that he really has no business calling anybody an insurrectionist, especially when nobody's been charged with an insurrection in regards to J6. Nobody, and certainly not convicted. I will concede, however, if he concedes Democrats are likely involved in insurrections all the time, using violence for political change, I'll concede Republicans maybe as well if his definition is that broad. However, that will eliminate his moral high ground for the justification of do what you want to them because they're traitors. That would also make you a traitor. With that, I'll cede my time. Note in that video that the entire audience, when he was asked this question by Pisco, said, yes, we would have preferred that Trump was unalive during that assassination attempt. Go ahead.
Okay. So that I have approximately 6 minutes and 45 seconds there. Destiny, I will reset the clock and allot you the same exact amount of time to stay fair here. Let me know when you are ready and I'll restart the clock.
Yeah, I'm ready whenever.
Ready? Okay, I'm going to start it now. I'll give you 6:45 and go ahead, brother.
All right. I believe that the subject matter of the debate is whether or not January 6th is an insurrection or would be considered an insurrection. Originally, I thought there was going to be a 1v1 debate against me and Andrew, but I can do a 1v2 debate against my 2021 less educated self as well. I have no problem speaking to arguments I've made in prior clips. I have no problem speaking to current arguments made by Andrew. So we can head down that road. I think that the first thing that we need to acknowledge when
he literally just stepped into the fucking trap. I hope he has the clip. God damn. Remember I said, pulling shit out of context, that is going to bite him in the ass. Oh my God. No! I mean, yes. I feel bad.
When we talk about the structure of the United States government is that the Constitution of the United States is the supreme law of the land. The Constitution is what powers our three branches of government, and it sits above every other part of our government, and every part of our government must comport to the Constitution. I think this is a foundational American belief and principle, and if you don't share on this foundational belief, then we're never going to connect in any sort of meaningful way when we talk about how U.S. law or U.S. process or procedure, whatever, should be carried out. So that being said, there was an amendment to the Constitution, the 14th Amendment, and Section 3 of that.
Okay. Why is he so big on this Section 3 of the 14th Amendment? He keeps, like, he said that in the other video too. But he frames it as if, like, we're not.
Amendment basically goes on to say that any prior oath taker that has engaged in or aided in an insurrection is no longer allowed to hold office, essentially. Now, the question that we come...
The issue, they didn't...
to today is trying to define what is an insurrection. And while in modern times, it seems like an insurrection is a term left to a dictionary or a term left to internet debaters, at the time that the amendment, the 14th Amendment, was framed.
If this becomes an insurrection in his worldview, then are we going... I hope Andrew follows up with something like, so should we... What's it called when it's like retrograde, charge people for the BLM shit?
What was an insurrection was pretty well understood. An insurrection,
and I'm pretty sure they did for looting. I think
it's four vital elements. One,
but then it has to be like conspiracy in the same regard, or not conspiracy. I'm sorry. Like, if it's found to be an insurrection, that means that those people were. Would it be conspiracy too? It always fucks. You know what I'm saying, though.
Is an assemblage, meaning a group of people that have come together. Two is resisting any law or interfering with the course of a government proceeding. Three is you have to do this by way of force or intimidation. And four is it has to be through for a public concern or a public cause, not a private thing that one might be interested in. Just for some understandings of when we say an assemblage, we can look to in 1861, Justice Benjamin Curtis said a combination or conspiracy by which different individuals are united in one common purpose. So not just a bunch of people.
Oh, please. one common purpose for the assemblage. Did Trump get like military forces? Why am I viewing this differently? I don't
People
know.
in a city protesting different things, but a group of people that are united in one common purpose. We can look to Justice Samuel Chase in the case of Freeze in the year 1800. He says, if a body of people conspire and meditate an insurrection to resist or oppose the execution of any statute of the United States, a statute such as the ECA, the Electoral Count Act, which is what they were united on January 6th to insurrect against. They were opposing the execution of that. They are only guilty of a high misdemeanor, but
how can he okay, I'm not even trying to like be argumentative, but he's misrepresenting a lot of this shit. How do you know that that was the goal? You don't. You cannot know what's in somebody's head. And unless there was a clear, organized, this is what we're doing at this time, you do this, we will go there. No. Fucking people stormed there before he was done with the speech. That's not, that already like disputes it. That's why it's like fucking me up. Like you can't say that that was the goal when he wasn't convicted of that. Crazy.
If they proceed to carry such intention into execution by force, which we did see on the day of January 6th, regardless of if every member engaged in force or just one.
Let's not forget that the Democrats were there as well. So they as well? Like, why do we forget that part?
They are guilty of the treason of levying war and the quantum of force.
Treason? To levy? I think he's lost his fucking mind. Genuinely. There's like 4 things that, when he talked to Ben Shapiro, it got maybe to fraud, and that's not even under it. Fuck it though, right? Fuck the lawyer.
Employed neither lessens nor increases the crime, whether by 100 or 1,000 persons, is wholly immaterial. Doesn't matter if you have an insurrection of 50 people, 100 people, or
oh, it absolutely matters. The number matters. What are you talking about? The reason he's saying that is because in the video we saw with the Glenn guy, he was trying to say that it needs to be a specific amount of people. Andrew's going to refute that for sure, because it has to be organized. He's saying it doesn't matter if it's 50 or 1,000. It matters. It matters. Like, Jesus.
1,000 people. You only really need 2 people there to make it an insurrection.
No?
In terms of whether or not they were resisting a law or interfering.
Remember, even he was saying, it's if it's 2, is that an assemblage, whatever that word is? And Destiny just said that in the beginning. What are you talking about? He's lost his mind.
The cause of government. We can quote here, an insurrection against the United States requires resistance to any statute or some public law of the United States. This is a quote by Judge in, I think, 1826. Curtis spoke this to a jury. He says, the law does not distinguish between a purpose to prevent the execution of one or several or all laws. An insurrection could be directed at a legislature as well as at executive officials. William Rawle declared that an effort to coerce repeal of a general law to be an overt act of levying war. And Justice Field's opinion in the Great House Court case held that any effort to coerce the conduct of government constituted an insurrection, such as when people went to the White House, or I'm sorry, went to the Capitol to coerce Pence to overthrow the election, which is what Donald Trump told them to do, by force or by intimidation, quoting Justice Marshall in 1807.
But he's not, he couldn't even do that.
The most comprehensive definition of levying war against the king or against the United States, which I have seen, requires an assemblage of men ready to act and with an intent to do some treasonable act and armed in warlike manner, or else assembled in such numbers as to supersede the necessity.
Now he's saying now assembled in such numbers. Okay, which is a Destiny. In the same 2 minutes, you just contradicted yourself. It doesn't matter if it's 50 or 1,000. Doesn't matter if it's 2. No, it matters. Like, it matters. And now you're saying, Oh,
arms.
yeah.
You don't necessarily need weapons to do it. You could just have the numbers of people there.
You don't need weapons. Oh my God. Okay, fine. You're talking about. I'll try to play with his idea. Sorry.
Threatening to use force or intimidation. And then for a public purpose, obviously, the insurrection is to, I'm quoting Judge John Kane here, insurrections to redress by force national grievances or to reform real or imaginary evils of a public nature. Obviously, they were protest.
There's that evil. No, I would not have done that if I was Destiny. Do not do that, because that's about to refute all of your shit.
The vote. That's what they were there to do. This is obviously a public issue. So to recount,
and when I say it's going to refute all your shit, evil's a very large concept. There's many things a part of it. It's not just what you're thinking. But for one thing, it has like. So should you condemn people or no? It's like, is that evil? Because that would make you evil. Now, Destiny will probably say something like, well, I didn't have a clear plan to do X, Y, Z, but it doesn't matter. Because who are you to judge a behavior if you already fall into it yourself? It sounds like a stupid argument, but it refutes his position. Be very cautious before you do that.
For the assembly, there were hundreds of people that breached the Capitol building. There were thousands that trespassed on federal land. For two, there was a clear resistance to the federal law. The trespassers were there to contravene the Electoral Count Act. There was a plethora of evidence brought up in the Anderson versus Griswold case about this, where quoting the judges on that case, they said substantial evidence in the record showed that the mob's unified purpose was to hinder or prevent Congress from counting the electoral votes as required by the 12th Amendment and from certifying the 2020 presidential election.
But no. He's saying, correct me if I'm wrong, January 6th was, no, that's your opinion again. To stop the accounting of electoral votes, it was going to go on regardless, and they finished it that evening. Even if there was a protest or not, it would still go on. I'm so confused.
Third element, the resistance made extensive use of force. This is self-evident just by watching any of the videos.
So now force matters. Even though you said no weapons. I'm confused.
To quote the Colorado Supreme Court again, the mob repeatedly and violently assaulted police officers who were trying to defend the Capitol. Obviously, there were calls to hang Mike Pence, and people marched very famously with 1776 signs, which, as many in this audience might be familiar with, was a very popular insurrection in U.S. history, or a rebellion even, one might say. And then for a public...
This is giving, like, you wear a fucking Marilyn Manson shirt, and now suddenly you want to overthrow God and shit. Satanic panic! There were signs. But there was no deliberate measure that says, we are going to overthrow XYZ. There was none. Right now, he sounds like my brother, with all due respect. Finding things that don't line up. They don't, because if they did, it would have been convicted.
The purpose, it was obviously for the public purpose of resisting what they perceived to be as the stealing of the election. There are ways to try to counter this argument. We can either use nonsense definitions of insurrection, but that doesn't really matter. The only thing that matters was the public understanding and the legal understanding of insurrection at the time the 14th Amendment was created and when Section 3 was framed, because that's what the Constitution demands, that we look at what was thought of as an insurrection when the language was added to the Constitution. We can try to divert by talking about BLM or anything else, and I'm happy to dive into all of those examples if we are going to concede on the original argument that January 6th satisfies all four elements of what I consider an insurrection to be. If we want to concede that and move on to analyzing any particular BLM action or whatever, that's totally fine. We can talk...
The reason... So, okay. I don't think it had to be that wordy. Maybe that was on purpose. I don't know. I haven't watched him in a while, other than those videos that we just recently watched, but essentially keeping the definition broad, trying to make it seem like it's not good language, good job, whatever, but it was still wordy as fuck. Like, if I was Destiny and I want to keep that definition as broad as I can, I want to keep my explanation and justification just as short. Because right now, people know that it's not, you know? I don't know if that
about
makes
the
sense.
likeliness to work, of which an insurrection has never been defined as. An insurrection doesn't necessarily have to lead to the overthrow of a government. That would be understood as a rebellion. Every insurrection is not a rebellion, though every rebellion starts as an insurrection. And then when we say, this is a common one as well, why was no one charged with an insurrection? People can be charged or couldn't be charged with crimes for a variety of reasons, but for purposes of the 14th Amendment, nothing in there requires the criminal conviction of the crime of insurrection, only that an insurrection occurred and that one engaged in it or aided it.
Wait, so then why do you care? Wouldn't you want them to be held accountable? Because if they committed the insurrection, they wouldn't be able to run, right? Or would they? I don't think he would. That's where I don't know. You guys tell me. I don't know.
All right. And that is 6:40. Okay. So just 5 seconds shy. That completes the opening statements. Really good arguments from both sides here. We'll go into round one. I'll turn it back. So we just completed opening statements. Guys.
Also, his opening where he was like, I didn't realize this was 2 against 1. Oh, that was good. That seemed obvious to me. When somebody asks you, do you want to start? Blah, blah, blah. Don't be eager to be like, I'll do it. And it's just one way, but okay.
Guys, each party had 6 minutes and 45 seconds to make their original stance and their first opening statements. We'll go to round one. I'll set the clock for 3 minutes. Andrew, let me know when you are ready.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, timer is going now. Go ahead.
Yeah, so let's start with this idea of my definition. What the hell do I care about your definition? Nobody has been prosecuted for any insurrection by any definition. Destiny comes through and he gives us this list. He says 1, an assemblage. Okay. 2, resisting any law or interfering with the course of a government proceeding. Okay. 3, by force or intimidation. Okay. 4, for a public purpose. He has just outlined basically almost every single political riot I've ever heard of. That is what that is outlining. So let's see, an assemblage. This would cover a riot, a bunch of people assembling. Resisting any law or interfering with the course of a government proceeding. That could be shutting down roadways for commerce. That could mean anything. So by force or intimidation.
So what Andrew's doing is showing why it's too broad of a definition. He's keeping it broad. Andrew wants to keep it narrow.
Dating, if you have Black Lives Matter, other groups like this who are out there saying no justice, no peace, that would be very intimidating. And then for public purpose, very nebulous. All of this is completely nebulous language. He has not actually given us a definition at all. By the way, if you could cam me while I'm talking, I'd appreciate it. He has not given us a definition at all. He's just kind of given us this loose, nebulous, framework for what is or isn't an insurrection. So let's kind of dive into a couple more things here. He says people can or can't be charged for a variety of reasons. That's not saying anything. So what? Yeah, that's true. Maybe they committed insurrection and they weren't charged for insurrection, but also maybe they did not commit insurrection and that's why they weren't charged with insurrection. That's a non-argument. He says that these elements, third element, self-evident, Colorado Supreme Court using 1776 signs. People use 1776 signs all the time and have absolutely no interest in any type of rebellion whatsoever. It's very common for people to have those as bumper stickers. That doesn't mean that they're going to be engaging in any kind of rebellion or insurrection at all. He also, as he talks about these various rulings, he says treason of levying war comes in. Obviously, insurrection seems to have something to do with levying war against the United States, or at least some type of start to levy war against the United States. He still has not actually demonstrated any of this. He's just given us this really nebulous idea. An assemblage, resisting any law or interfering with a course of government proceeding by force or intimidating for public. This is very nebulous. So unless Destiny is going to concede that anything which meets this criteria is an insurrection, then I'm not even sure how to go forward with this debate. How in the world can he say essentially almost...
So essentially, like, Destiny has... Which is crazy to think about because he's the one saying that red pillars back then were cherry picking. This is clearly cherry picking to make it seem like XYZ. But by his thought process with the 4 whatever the fuck, why wouldn't he be convicted? Because it would be so obvious, right? It doesn't make sense. Andrew's doing a good job trying to justify why they need to narrow it down. The reason that it's, well, I won't go there yet. Let's keep
Any
going.
riot on planet Earth or any assemblage, even a peaceful protest where they shut down the roads, is an insurrection. That can't be true. That just can't be true.
Okay. We had ended there at about 2:57. Andrew, you're up on our channel. They can see you. I don't know if
Yeah,
it's
we're
on
good
your-
on mine too.
Oh, you are okay. Perfect. I just want to make sure that we're there. So, but you are definitely up on, and whoever's speaking, I always make them the main.
So I ran through Destiny's, what I would do if I was Destiny. I wrote out their strategies. Each Destiny's particularly had two. If I was in Destiny's position, I know where I lack, and that's that definition. So instead of trying to come up with shit, you should concede, because you'd be forced to do it anyway if you keep going back, and you can still actually have your side really effective if you would have just conceded. So now to other people, it's going to look opportunistic isn't the right word. Like combative is like one way of thinking it, but I don't know. It's like, but at the same time, he wants to keep it broad, but he has to use vague language, which sounds like an oxymoron, but he's not doing that. So we know Destiny can talk really fast and he'll spit a lot of information, which is great, but this is like the one scenario that I wouldn't do it. So, well, I'm curious to see how he's going to come back.
In person. So, Destiny, I'm going to put, this is round one. I'm going to put 3 minutes on the clock for you. Are you ready?
What's wrong with his definition is that it's not cohesive. He's cherry picking a bunch of different stuff, and it's keeping it so broad that every single protest, every single road being cut off or whatever would constitute as it. It's just, it's not effective. If they can't agree on this definition, it's going to end up going to Myron, but I'm pretty sure they all know that. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead, brother.
So I think my definition is pretty clear. There's an assemblage. There's a clear resistance to the implementation or the execution of some federal law. The resistance has an aim to make use of force or intimidation, and it's gathered for a particular public purpose. BLM.
I really hope they go into capacity. I really hope they do. Because, like, even Ben Shapiro was saying, like, do you think that this was Trump's goal? And he vehemently thinks it was. Or, I'm sorry, he really believes it was. I don't believe it was his goal at all. And Ben Shapiro doesn't think it's his goal at all. Because if it was his goal, it would be a lot more strategic, for instance. But the reason that it's not is because despite the evidence to say it wasn't stolen, the election wasn't stolen, he doesn't believe it. And so if he doesn't believe it, he's never going to admit to it, give accountability like the other side wants and shit. Ugh.
Almost automatically fails on the fact that these were not usually demonstrations against federal law. I don't know the federal law or the federal thing that was being resisted by BLM. But again, I'm happy to dive into any particular BLM supposed insurrection or riot if you'd like. But again,
earlier he said he didn't want to, so that's good for him to say now he's fine with addressing it. But earlier he said it would be not productive. I forget what word he used, or like what's it called? Divert. That's what he used.
I mean, that has nothing to do with January 6th. And if you want, then you can see that entire argument and we can move on to analyzing individual BLM instances. But again, you'd have to show that there was some implementation or carrying out of some federal function for it to be an insurrection against the United States government. States might have their own definitions of state insurrections. I'm unaware of any. So to say again, my definition of insurrection, like very clearly has 4 elements.
It's not clear.
If you want to suggest an alternate definition that you feel more accurately comports with what you would consider an insurrection to be, that's fine. But we can't just say that it's nebulous and there is no definition when we have we've got references made in our Constitution and in our federal criminal code to insurrection. That doesn't make any sense. We can complain about people being charged with an insurrection or not. But whether or not somebody is charged with an insurrection, again, has nothing to do with the event itself.
So then that's like a big deal. You know what? You know what's a threat to democracy? that. So at this point, this feels like a witch hunt. It feels like a witch hunt. Like, you died on this hill, not actually, but you like pick this position and now you are doubling the fuck down. More than that. It's not looking good. It's not looking good, Destiny. I'm gonna say it again. He would be better off conceding. It's Andrew that doesn't want to concede. But I guess
for instance,
they will
if I were
have
to look
go
and
back
see
and
at any
forth.
number of BLM riots, if I were to look at a riot, would a challenge to that riot be, well, was anybody charged with rioting? If I could show you a riot where people clearly engaged
they
in a riot,
were.
where there was a mass of people that were engaged in violent behavior that involved the destruction of some property or violent activity, but I were to say, well, look, nobody was actually charged with rioting.
Yeah,
Would you
they
say then that,
were.
well, I guess nobody was actually, or there wasn't a riot that actually happened? Nobody would make that claim. There's a whole list of reasons why a prosecutor may or may not charge for particular crimes. In this particular case, there were really good reasons not to head down that insurrection charge road, because it would probably put the Supreme Court in a very hairy area, which they might end up getting into anyway, in terms of actually having a strict definition of what insurrection is. But again, the 14th Amendment doesn't require a strict definition of insurrection in order to
Is
disbar.
Destiny on ADD meds? He seems more focused. Same.
Somebody from running from office. All it needs is for a court to engage in asking the question of whether or not somebody had engaged in an insurrection, and if they had and were a prior oath taker, then they were barred from taking any public office in the future. So yeah, again, if there's an alternate definition that wants to be explored for an insurrection, then I welcome that.
We need to understand why Destiny cares about this. So I hope Andrew goes there and he just listens, because at this point, what are we doing? Okay, what are we doing? It's not a legal thing. We don't care if it's going to be charged. You're just saying that because you wanted to support whatever like cognitive dissonance is going on right now, with all due respect. But it's like not going to make sense later, because at the end of the day, why the fuck do you give a fuck?
But that definition, it needs to comport.
Like I want to know if Destiny's afraid of Trump being in office, because I think that's a way more productive conversation. I know we can't really change it, but it's like, you know, like I can understand if I put myself in the other. I know what it's like to be on one side where all this indoctrination gets pushed on us and everybody on the other side seems to be fine about it, but we've had to go through it. We lived. You know, it's just like, it's always an issue. Well, obviously is one thing, but it seems like if you're center right or right, it's like we've had to do a lot of stuff that we didn't want to do. So like, why are you really scared though?
With the historical and legal understanding of what an insurrection was. Otherwise, it's just meaningless, meandering, opining that means nothing, when we should be thinking like, what was the definition of insurrection at the time the 14th Amendment was drafted?
Okay, that's 2 minutes and 40 seconds. You don't want to use the rest of the 20 seconds, Destiny? Okay.
We can, if this ends up going into like a whole bunch of like BLM stuff, I mean, we can get to that, but that has no bearing on whether J6 would be considered an insurrection or not. So.
Okay, so 2 minutes and 57 seconds. That completes round one. I will restart the clock. We'll move into round two. I'll turn it back to you, Andrew. Let me know when you're ready, and I'll turn the clock on.
So I'm not claiming that this has anything to do with BLM. I'm doing an internal critique and saying that if you're going to apply these nebulous standards to this, then you must apply them to this. If this category, if category A over here, also would include everything which includes a riot, then we would need to know what the delineating factor is. He claims here there must be some federal element.
Andrew was way too fucking nice. He's literally giving it to Destiny. And he probably is not going to see it. Like, goddamn.
However, that's not in his definition. His definition does not include any federal element. To go over his definition again, an assemblage resisting law by force or intimidation for public purpose. It doesn't say anything about a federal element. He just pulled that out of his ass. I don't know where the hell he got that from. It's definitely not in his definition. If it was, he should have said that was in his definition. He said he keeps going back to this illogical idea that just because X doesn't happen doesn't mean X isn't true. Yeah, that's true, but it also doesn't mean X is true. So making the claim that, well, wait a second, Andrew, just because they weren't actually charged with insurrection doesn't mean they weren't guilty of insurrection. Well, that's nice, but it doesn't mean they were either. And I have the evidence on my side, as none of them were actually prosecuted for insurrection. None of them were prosecuted for insurrection, and Trump was acquitted for inciting insurrection. So the evidence is on my side. He would actually have to demonstrate that this was an insurrection and that they were all wrong, that they were completely incorrect in not charging it this way. He just keeps saying, well, there's a variety of reasons why they didn't. Well, that's nice. Couldn't one of the reasons be because it wasn't an insurrection? Yes, that seems to be a very obvious reason, doesn't it? Going back to my opening, I just want to kind of point out that Destiny has changed his entire idea on this. Whereas at first he claimed in 2021, this was in no way an insurrection, that it fit the criteria of a riot better from anybody who's looking at it objectively. I agree with him. That's exactly what it fits. But he still has not demonstrated at all that this was actually an insurrection. He just says, well, I have this nebulous definition. He also says, give me a counter definition. It's not my burden to give you a counter definition. What do you mean? I'm not calling him insurrectionist. You're calling him insurrectionist. I don't have to define for you what that means. You have to define for me what that means. Giving me these four elements.
Right now, like I told you, it's way too fucking nice. Literally, if Destiny doesn't, like Destiny, in order to be seen in a good light from the audience, is going to have to listen to what Andrew's saying and like follow it. A lot of people on the other side really don't like Andrew, and they have this idea that he does XYZ when really it's that side. It's like projection. It's like he's literally telling you what you have to do in order for this to keep going. So either he does it or he doesn't. What do you guys think? I don't think he'll do it. I don't know.
Here is meaningless unless you can tell me what goes in those categories specifically that does not go in the category for rioting. Because as I look at an assemblage, resisting any law by force or intimidating or for public, that could all just be rioting. That does not really tell me what goes in the category. You didn't include federal anything. So I would like for you.
Let me read the chat. Why does Andrew fail to understand that the discussion being had was about a federal crime? He wants to win by stating that the definition given by Destiny doesn't work on the state level. No, it's way more complicated than that. Essentially, we went over the strategy they would have to go to keep it really simple, like TLDR. Destiny wants to keep the insurrection, I can't even say it. He wants to keep the definition of it broad, because in a debate, in the introduction, you have the affirmative and negative position. The affirmative has the burden. They agree with the proposition was January 6th an insurrection, and they are supposed to state the terms, or I'm sorry, they're supposed to define what was January 6th an insurrection. They have to define it word by word. Obviously, they're just doing the insurrection part, whatever. So Andrew went first. He's in the negative position. You can do this. It's a strategy. He set the tone for the debate and the line of questioning, whatever. So until they agree on was January 6th an insurrection, like the definition on its whole, they really can't do anything else. And so Destiny's going to want to keep it broad and get Andrew to concede. And then if he concedes, he kind of wins pretty much. I mean, it'll still go on, but Andrew's goal is not to concede to his definition. He wants to keep it narrow. So when the language starts to get confusing, it's one of two things. One, cognitive dissonance, or two, trying to do that strategy I was explaining before, where in order to get Destiny to concede, Andrew needs to use broad language in a vague way. You're like, what the fuck does that mean? I couldn't pull an example off the top of my head, but it is a thing. We've done it in debate. And then the reverse is true for the other, which is why it's not looking good for Destiny. And that's why I said when I gave the strategies, he's going to have to concede. He doesn't want to, though. And would it constitute as bad faith? I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and just assume that he didn't think that far ahead. Doesn't formally debate, maybe. A lot of people get stuck in this part, but we'll see. We'll see. Maybe he'll concede. I've paused it a lot, so it might seem like it's been going on way longer.
To actually expand on this definition so I can understand what the hell you're talking about and why the J6ers specifically fit this criteria.
All right. That is 2 minutes and 49 seconds. Destiny, I'll turn it to you.
Is it loud enough?
Whenever you're ready.
Yeah.
And we are in round 2 right now, the bottom of round.
Yeah, so people like, again, so there's 2 parts to the insurrection, 2 elements that I don't think would fit. So the first one is an assemblage. That would clearly fit a riot, I think, but it would fit a riot and it would fit an insurrection. The second part is resisting a particular law.
Wait, but I'm unclear on what you want. If you say anything but an assemblage, I'm going to think that you're just brain rotted. Piers, you said one dude, one guy, and it has to be a planned assemblage. Okay. I think he's having cognitive dissonance. It happens.
Interfering with the course of a government proceeding. There are plenty of riots that aren't riots to resist like the implementation of a law or to interfere necessarily with like some government proceeding. We can imagine a million reasons why people might riot.
Why are you bringing it back to law, Destiny? When you were the one that didn't want to do the law part. I would just end it here and reschedule it because it seems like it's cognitive dissonance. I would test it.
Outside of a baseball game, people might riot in protest to a statement that was made or in relation to, I don't know, the outcome of a sporting event. Like there's tons of people that can riot that aren't rioting with the goal of resisting the implementation of a particular law or trying to interfere with the course of some government proceeding. So the part 2, the second element I've listed really wouldn't comport with.
Yes. Okay, wait, hold on. Is he saying because of the specific thing, but that didn't happen. It didn't stop the it didn't stop it. It was, in his idea, an attempt to stop the counting of the electoral votes or whatever, but it didn't happen. So, like, there's evidence that it continued on that following evening. It finished. It'd be one thing if they didn't do it, but they did. That's what's going to fuck him up.
With most riots. And then the third one is the third element by force or intimidation. I would say that riots generally have a forceful or intimidating aspect to them, although they generally happen spontaneously. Usually they're not planned in advance.
Wait, did he say violence? Sorry, I just blanked. I'm like, did you just say that they have violence attached to them? I think I missed it. It was like peaceful protesting.
To use like force or intimidation. To quote Justice Greer, quote, legal authorities carefully distinguished planned insurrections from spontaneous riots. Justice Robert Greer charged the grand jury in the United States v. Hanway that a defendant who was not leagued with violent resistors to federal law.
I think Andrew should question him to like gently to see if he's having cognitive dissonance, because I can't believe he just fucking said that. Like, come on, Destiny. I know I'm talking shit, but like, I want y'all to like have a good conversation. You can't tell me that you think that's true.
Not be prosecuted for treason. Greer insisted that spontaneous riots were not insurrections, that insurrections required a commitment to use force to resist law, not spur of the moment.
Like, is he not? He doesn't get January 6th. Like, oh my God. The reason that I'm so shocked is because it has to be planned. Not just like a second before. Like, the thing is, if it was planned when Trump gets to the last thing that he said about peaceful protesting, why were people protesting before? Before he even said that. Like, this is crazy to me. Someone check on your boy.
Violence. Most riots just kind of like
happen. It's pretty rare that they are planned in advance. And I think we all agree that if they are planned in advance, it takes on a much different character and arguably could call under it like different types of crimes. If people, engage in rioting, it's not good. But if people are literally planning it out in advance, we're calling in a whole bunch of different crimes there than just the simple thing of calling a particular thing a riot. And then for the fourth thing, when we say for a public purpose, the fourth element, this is the second thing that I don't think most riots would necessarily be in opposition to, that we are insurrecting for some sort of public grievance relating to like the actions of a particular government. So like you might riot, for instance, like BLM might riot against like police violence, but what is there's not like a particular federal statute or federal law there. In terms of me specifying the federal part, well, I mean, J6 was a insurrection against like a federal entity. Again, if we want to talk about like state insurrections or something, I guess we can, but the differentiating factor here, the reason why I have the federal part is because we're talking about federal insurrections, and especially for the 14th Amendment, the federal insurrection part is what we're kind of talking about. I'm not even sure if you can do a state insurrection, maybe you can. But I mean, like summarizing this argument, like the Colorado court found that Donald Trump acted as part of an assemblage, okay, that he helped bring into being. He called the people there. Trump was resisting the enforcement of federal and constitutional rules. He was contravening the 12th Amendment, and he was resisting the Electoral Count Act. Donald Trump, he took numerous illegal actions to prevent the peaceful transition of presidential power. This is like a function of the government. He engaged in an ongoing course of conduct aimed at producing violent resistance to the peaceful transfer of presidential power, and he was attempting to decide support to attack Congress. Whether or not somebody's charged doesn't matter. Okay.
That is time. So what I'll do is that
it was easier to follow this time around. It's just that concede, Destiny. Concede. Just like in debate, conceding doesn't mean that you automatically lose. Just period. Like, I don't know why it seems like on YouTube debates, people have a hard time with conceding. Granted, I said Andrew cannot concede, essentially, because Andrew is like the foundation. He's got the moderator, not Myron, but just like the legal definition, just because his argument's going to be based on the legal definition. And in debates, when you go back and forth so many times, by default, they will eventually take the legal definition. So he already has an upper hand there just for that. Destiny, though, has two separate strategies that I came up with that you could go down. And the best one involves conceding. I don't get why he's not doing it, because now it's just really combative. I feel like they're wasting the energy in the wrong spot.
And that concludes round two. Andrew, I'll turn it back to you unless you want me to give Destiny a little bit extra time, and I can give you that extra time as well on the back end, but I'll let you choose that.
Yeah, I'm fine. He can finish.
Okay. Destiny, go ahead and finish, and I will.
Yeah, sure. The final point was that but my final statement is, okay, if you looked at the Colorado court case, they found that Donald Trump acted as part of an assemblage that he helped bring into being. It said that Trump was resisting the enforcement of federal and constitutional rules, that Trump took...
I want to say right now, this is a good thing that Myron said, do you want to add in the extra minute or whatever? That was really good, because this is his strongest point. Because this is proof that they found in some regard that the thing is, Andrew can say, like, that's one state, it sounds like it's you, Colorado, against the world right now, baby, or something. But this is a good point. It's a good thing that he added it.
Numerous illegal actions to prevent the peaceful transition of presidential power. He engaged in an ongoing course of conduct aimed at producing violent resistance to the peaceful transfer of presidential power. He attempted to incite his supporters to attack Congress, which they did, and that Trump's speech occurred sufficiently close in time and place to when and where the insurrection took place to be considered an incitement. Like every single part of this, like very...
I mean, that was smart of him to put it that way, because the evidence. But before, it seemed like... I don't think he said anything about it before, but he said something like he told them to go over there.
Easily and very cleanly meets the definition of insurrection. If we want to argue that my definition isn't clean or that my four elements aren't being met, that's, well, I don't know how we can argue that. I think
Destiny, we're fucking confused on it. Just concede.
all four elements are being met. If we want to argue that, well, every single riot would, fall into this, then we could say, well, fine, Destiny, I agree. For your definition of insurrection, fine, January 6th was an insurrection. Now let's talk about these other events. We could talk about whether they fit or don't fit. Or you can give me your own definition of insurrection, and then we can go from there.
Okay, that added
he
an
did
extra
it again.
55 seconds. So,
uh-oh. The thing is, it's your burden, my guy. That's why I said he should just fucking concede.
We're going
Y'all
to
are
round
killing
3.
me.
Andrew, I will give you that. So you will have 3 minutes and 55 seconds to your time. So I'll start at the clock.
Yeah.
now.
So again, trying to put the burden on me to give you a definition of your claim is insane. As we went through your definition here, it's really funny because I'm going to use your own logic back to you. Just because they weren't charged with an insurrection doesn't mean it wasn't an insurrection. Oh, okay. Well, they were actually charged with elements of rioting. So I'm going to say it was actually rioting. And I'm also going to say that, wait a second, your definition here seems to be more about rioting than anything else by your own claim.
This is exactly what I was explaining in the other video, which is why conceding would have been stronger again. God damn it. That was the reason. I couldn't remember what it was, but that was because of the logic, the using his own outline of how to do things back on him, and it negates it.
An assemblage would fit a riot, says Destiny. That's his first claim. Resisting any law or interfering with the course of a government proceeding. It wouldn't fit rioting itself, says Destiny, even though rioting itself is against the law. What do you mean? Of course it's impeding the law. Well, how could it not be impeding the law? Rioting itself is against the law. I don't know where the hell you came up with that. By force or intimidation, Destiny concedes riots require force for a public purpose. He concedes that's a riot. So really, under his definition, this is just a riot. The only thing that we're arguing about here is number 2, resisting any law or interfering with the course of a government proceeding. Let's try this again. Resisting any law or interfering with the course of a government proceeding. A riot itself is resisting the law because it's illegal to riot. So I don't understand how that, again, would not just be a riot. All of these things seem to fall into the category of what people were charged with, which is much more along and akin to rioting than it is any type of insurrection. He still hasn't told us the distinction that fits in this category, why this isn't a riot, even though everybody was charged under that kind of branch of rioting and not charged for insurrection. This is a garbage definition. It's totally nebulous, right? And he keeps on saying, well, wait a second, Andrew, why don't you go ahead and concede that unless you can go against all 4 of these points, why don't I actually have to do that? All I need to do is say, okay, all of these 4 points fit a different criteria better than insurrection. And apparently he agrees. He agrees on point 1, point 3, and point 4. The only thing he argues is point 2, but his argument for point 2 makes no sense because rioting itself is illegal. So therefore you are resisting any law or interfering with the course of a government proceeding. Well, the government proceeding is to enforce law. You would be interfering with the government enforcing law if you're rioting. So all of these fall under the better criteria of riot.
Wait, but didn't you say the thing about the electoral act or something? Wouldn't that still follow?
It's totally consistent in my mind because...
And I say that because although we're talking about not against the law, blah, 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 wasn't convicted, whatever, like that still happened. Andrew can dispute it, but like you can give him that. Maybe I missed.
That was the criteria in which people were charged, not with insurrection. And I really need Destiny to answer to that.
Okay, that was 2 minutes and 40 seconds. You still have a minute left, Andrew.
Come on,
You're gonna
Destiny.
concede that round then?
Yeah, I'll let him go ahead and answer to it.
Cool. So I will turn it back to you, Destiny. We're in round 3, and this is the second part of round 3. So your turn, Destiny. I'll start the clock back up for you.
Breaking a law and resisting law are not the same thing. Usually when people riot, they're not rioting with the purpose of making arson or murder or whatever other crimes are being broken to make those legal things. Usually they're breaking laws, not with the intent of like...
I'll just let him. What's the saying? Give them the rope and let them hang themselves?
Resisting the implementation or the execution of those...
Let's return that back for a second.
Breaking a law and resisting law are not the same thing. Usually when people riot, they're not rioting with the purpose of making arson or murder or
or whatever other crimes are being broken to make those legal things. Usually they're breaking laws, not with the intent of like resisting the implementation or the execution of those laws, or
What?
resisting or contravening the execution of like some function of government.
See,
When people were rioting on January 6th, the goal of that was to stop the execution of the Electoral Count Act.
this is abuse at this point. I don't think Andrew should keep going. So then why the fuck do you care about this? This isn't like a moral argument, but you just, oh my God. You're right. So leave Trump alone, dude. Like, your words, not mine. Like, what the fuck?
Was to stop the purpose of the government, the execution, the function of government, to do the peaceful transfer of power. They weren't simply engaged in violence and breaking the law. They were resisting the carrying out of the law, the Electoral Count Act, the ECA. And I don't know, we can loop on this over and over again, but again, if I can...
Like, you resist, yeah, and Trump resists giving over that peace. Oh my God, okay. It's not that Trump thinks it was stolen. He believed it to be. So to him, he was, which is crazy, but like stopping the electoral vote counting or whatever was in his brain, who's delusional. To him, that was constitutional. It wasn't, let's keep them from doing it. They also contacted officials, aside from the mic, I know, to double check it because he believed it to be true. So, I am tired. Like, God damn it. It's like, why are we doing this? If we're going to play semantics on resisting versus breaking, we're gonna have a long... Can you resist could you imagine being charged with just resisting arrest? Think about it. Why, like, wouldn't it work?
Show you in Kenosha, if I can show you in Seattle, if I can show you a riot, if I can give you a video of cities burning, people screaming and throwing shit, of, you know, property being destroyed or damaged, and then you were to go, wow, that kind of looks like a riot to me, I would go, yeah, it kind of does. However, nobody was actually charged with the crime of rioting.
Yeah,
so do you change your mind on that?
Wait. You can be charged with obstruction. Sure, but this is you. Why are they even talking to you? Why is a police officer talking to you? If there's nothing, no prop, what are you obstructing? Sorry, you're resisting arrest. What's the crime? Wouldn't you be charged with it? You know what I'm saying? Like, we're playing gymnastics. It doesn't follow logically, and shit happens, but it's just, look at my alfalfa.
Probably wouldn't affect your opinion at all. Again, whether or not you levy...
I kind of need a snack. Do you guys want one? You want something? We have croissants. You want a croissant? I'll get you one. No? Okay.
A particular charge at a person is way different than whether or not a particular event was a thing. Remember, when you levy a charge at somebody, a criminal charge, what you're really saying is that you can take a person, an individual, and prove beyond a reasonable doubt that no reasonable mind would agree that something else could have happened in front of a jury. That's what criminal court is for. Proving that somebody engaged in a crime beyond a reasonable doubt in a criminal court is not the standard that we...
Somebody send your boy some help. Oh no. Maybe I cut it too early. It seems irrelevant.
Used to
because of the thing he was saying in the beginning about the legality, but
a particular thing a thing. You don't have to prove in criminal court beyond a reasonable doubt that a thing was an insurrection or that a thing was a riot unless we were charging somebody with an actual crime.
Okay.
But isn't that the point? He lost me. Maybe I cut it early. Hold on.
There's that's 1:50 on the clock. So that concludes round 3. And I'm gonna turn it to you, gentlemen. You guys can let me know what you want. We can either do another round of 3 minutes uninterrupted debating, if you guys want to formulate your arguments a bit more, because I know there is.
I would like to do one more round if we could.
Or Destiny, are you okay with that?
Sure.
Okay, and then after that, so we'll go into a 4th round with the 3-minute debate time limit where no interruptions. Then after that, we can get into the 5 minutes of discourse between you two where you can actually speak. But is that fair for everybody?
Sure.
Cool. All right, so I will go ahead and reset the clock.
Go, Myron.
This will be round 4. Take it away, Andrew.
Yeah, so this is an absurd argument. We'll go right back to Destiny's logic again. He says just because somebody wasn't charged with X doesn't mean X didn't happen. This is the same. This is complete and total obfuscation, by the way, because ultimately what's going on here is that these do fit the criteria much better for a riot. And under the purview of rioting, these are the types of charges which were levied at these people. Destiny says specifically under point 2, he said, and he didn't answer to this. He said, resisting any law or interfering with the course of a government proceeding wouldn't fit rioting. Yes, it does fit rioting. It fits rioting better than anything else I can think of. Yes, you are immediately, upon rioting, resisting the law, and you are obstructing the law immediately. That is what a riot is. It's an unlawful assembly. So how he could say this, in fact,
to be fair, I think if I remember correctly, because I believe he was saying it wasn't going against like a federal issue, meaning, because I don't know how to summarize that, meaning like Trump was doing the unlawful transfer, peaceful transfer, whatever the fuck, and he's making that distinction. If I'm being generous, something like that.
Each point, he concedes on point 1, an assemblage that would fit a riot.
Oh, I'm sorry.
An assemblage would fit a riot. That's point 1. He agrees. Okay. Point 3, by force or intimidation, he agrees on point 3 that is a riot. He agrees on point 4. He conceded on that as well. And then he just conceded on point 2. He couldn't exactly tell us why resisting any law or interfering with the course of a government proceeding wouldn't fit a riot. Of course it fits a riot. All of these, in fact, fit the events of January 6th perfectly. Perfectly. And if he's conceding that, hey, these fit a riot perfectly, the events of January 6th were a riot under this definition, which he essentially has conceded is true, then the charges were appropriate that this was a riot and not an insurrection. This could not have been an insurrection. His own definition proves that this is more akin to a riot. He still hasn't really told us, by the way, what an insurrection is, just these kind of 4 nebulous points. But these 4 nebulous points fit a riot perfectly. Perfectly. And he's basically conceded to 3 of them on the outset. And then on the second, he's basically conceded that as well, because resisting any law or interfering with the course of a government proceeding would fit a riot by its very nature. The reason it would fit a riot by its very nature is because it's immediately an unlawful assembly. You're resisting the law. You're resisting the police. You're resisting. So whether that's done at a federal level or a state level, I think it would still meet the same fate of being more akin to a riot. This definition really moves towards a riot and not towards an insurrection. He has not told us the distinction yet. And so again, I think that the entire reason he wants this only painted as
just if you're joining. So just to recap, Andrew's trying to get that definition narrowed down. He's showing like these are all things that it could be a riot, whatever. He wants to narrow it down. Destiny is actually, I guess he is obfuscating. I hate when y'all be using that word, but you're not wrong. God damn.
Insurrection, even though nobody's ever been charged with an insurrection, even though Trump was cleared of inciting an insurrection, is so that he can make justifications for why the other side deserves what it gets.
My whole thing is that Destiny could have a winning argument if he plays into Andrew's framework, because but this is hard for people to do. I don't know why though. Probably because it's hard for people to like separate a worldview, I guess, maybe. But you should always be able to argue the opposite position really well. And so when I say he should get in the other definition, it's like you can prove that to be true to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just don't get why you're not doing it. I mean, I get it. They're just trying to go
It's because there are a bunch of traitors.
Fun.
Thus far, no, I'm sorry. This definition nor this logic adds up. The logic of saying, well, just because they weren't charged with a thing doesn't mean it wasn't the thing. Fine, but that doesn't mean it was the thing either. And by your criteria, it seems like it was this other thing.
Okay, that's 3 minutes and 10 seconds. I will make the clock the same for you, Destiny.
Come on,
to keep it fair.
Destiny. Get it.
I will start the timer if you're ready now.
Yeah, I guess we're just going to loop on these points. Resisting a law is not the same thing as breaking a law. If you could show me that there was a particular riot where people assembled and the goal of that riot was when they were rioting, they wanted to riot to make rioting legal, and that they had gathered, in order to change the law in a particular area, and they were going to use force and intimidation to do it.
Washington, D.C. in like 2017? Didn't that happen? I'll look it up.
We're here to riot today because we're going to make rioting legal, then sure, then we could argue that that's probably an insurrection. But I mean, these are the 4 elements that were historically understood at the time. Nobody had any issues at the time charging people with crimes of insurrection. Nobody had any confusion at the time historically. There was Shays' rebellions, the Whiskey insurrection, the Burr insurrection, John Brown's raids. You had convictions of, like a Pennsylvania farmer, I think, set fire to a house of a tax collector in 1794. He was charged with insurrection. John Freeze and friends made a show of arms that resulted in the release of persons charged with federal tax evasion. That was considered an insurrection. In 1847, when Hispanic and Native Americans attacked occupying American officials in New Mexico, that was considered an insurrection. In 1851, when Pennsylvanians obstructed official efforts to capture an alleged fugitive slave, that was an insurrection. In 1856, when there were rival forces in the United States that were violently resisting the laws on slavery, that was considered insurrection. These aren't just like riots where people are like, we're mad and we're breaking the law by being violent. It was they were resisting the law. They were resisting an actual like federal law claiming that that particular law shouldn't exist. They were trying to air a public grievance through force or intimidation with an assembled group of people in the
Okay, am I crazy?
Like,
am I crazy? Sorry, Destiny, hold on. Bad way to pause it. Hold on. Maybe I'm just seeing shit. 3 women were chained together at their neck on the 10th Street. More than 150 disrupt demonstrators surrounding an entrance near the Canadian Embassy. This checkpoint is closed, they chanted, forcing Trump's supporters to turn back and walk along Indiana Avenue in a clear path. An assortment of pop-up protests also line the streets surrounding the secure zones on the mall. We're here to take a stand against the ideas that Trump spouted throughout the course of the campaign: sexism, Islamophobia, his bigotry, and nationalism. The protests did not stop at the checkpoints. Half a dozen members of the Democracy Spring, a group that agitates against the influence of money in politics, sound familiar? Obtained tickets that placed them within shouting distance of the swearing-in ceremony. As Trump stepped forward to take the oath of office, 6 protesters wearing a letter of the word resist stood up to chant the preamble to the U.S. Constitution. Their shouting made it difficult for those seated nearby, including former campaign staffers and volunteers, as well as Trump's ex-wife, Ivana Trump. I thought it was Melania. Utter the words that officially made him the 45th, whatever. The disruption was compounded when, much as it happened at Trump's campaign rallies, his supporters responded, erupting in shouts of Trump, 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 as they tried to down the interlopers. Liberal groups praised the work of protesters, many of whom traveled around the country to rail against the president they called illegitimate, in thousands of signs and songs. The only source of light on this miserable day is the massive, multiracial, multi-generational progressive resistance movement led by women and people of color that's already emerging to confront Donald Trump's agenda of hate and growing stronger every single day. In New York, 9 people were arrested for disorderly conduct, according to the New York Police Department. Authorities said 5 people were arrested at a protest in Dallas, 6 in Chicago. In Portland, Oregon. In Portland, Oregon. Protesters were armed with clubs, sticks, and throwing unknown liquid at officers. According to the Portland Police Department, 6 people were arrested in Portland Friday. According to the sergeant, whatever. In Seattle, people threw bricks and other items at officers during a demonstration on the University of Washington campus, city police said. Harborview Medical Center in Seattle confirmed it was treating a man who was shot at the protest and is in critical condition. Seattle police said a man turned himself into campus police and was being questioned. The anti-Trump protests extend well beyond the water's edge, with rallies popping up in Australia, London, Hong Kong, and Berlin, where demonstrators held a sign that read, "Walls divide." In the West Bank, Palestinians protested against Israeli settlements and Trump's plan to move the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem from Tel Aviv. Sorry, I pronounced it. Tel Aviv. No? In Sydney, anti-Trump protesters, Trump supporters, spilled the city streets Saturday to protest the U.S. president. Thousands of people attended a women's march in Martin Place in the central part of the city. Event organizers claimed nearly 5,000 people attended the march, but Sydney police estimate that number was closer to 3,000. Chants from the crowd included, "Women united will never be defeated." These fucking God. Okay, everyone, women's rights are under attack. What we do is we stand up and fight back. A separate, smaller protest of approximately 30 people in support of Trump also took place at Martin Place that Saturday. Witness to the protest, Eliza Berlage, told CNA some Trump enthusiasts also carried placards saying "Aussies for Trump." I love that. The police refrained the pro-Trump protesters from going into the area with anti-Trump protesters. Scuffles ensued as police tried to physically restrain some of the rally goers. On Thursday night in Washington, protesters gathered on 14th Street outside National Press Club to demonstrate against deplorable. Okay, is this important? All attendees, or as attendees, some of whom were in suits and red hats, others dressed in gowns, entered the event. Demonstrators chanted "Shame" and "Nazis go home." Oh! Behind some signs read "No alt rec." Ooh. It's pretty good. God damn. A protester has her eyes flushed with water. Oh my God. Okay. Sorry. I had to read all that. That was fascinating. Let's keep going.
Turning that particular thing through violent action. And then on this final thing, so there is a difference between resisting law and breaking a law. Just because you're engaged in a riot doesn't mean that you're resisting the implementation of law. People that are engaged in riots aren't usually rioting to make riots legal. That's what would make that the equivalent. And then just the crime of X is not the same thing as the event of X. I don't know why we keep saying this. Nobody was charged with insurrection, therefore there was no insurrection. If I walk into a room and I see a person's throat cut, can I not say that there was a murder here if nobody was charged with murder? If I see 20 people setting fire to a house and they all run away and nobody gets charged with arson, can I not say that an arson happened? If I look on video and I see that there's 500 people blowing up, some shit, and they managed to run away, or the cops, can't arrest any of these people or charge them with like the formal, crime of rioting, does that mean there was no riot that took place? The crime of X is different than the event of X. And right now we're talking about if
That's what Ben Shapiro said to him, didn't he?
6 was an insurrection. Not did any individual person engage in the criminal behavior of insurrection. That would be a separate conversation. If we want to have that conversation, we could, but we would have to first concede that an insurrection did indeed take place on January 6th. And I believe that the Colorado Supreme Court engaged in good analysis, and they decided that an insurrection had taken place because it comports with all 4 elements that I gave to an insurrection that were commonly understood in the historical and legal record around the time that the 14th Amendment was passed, when they were putting insurrection in the Section 3 of the 14th Amendment.
But you only want the legal definition there. Ugh.
To prevent prior oath takers from holding office again who had engaged in insurrection.
I need a beer.
Okay. So that completes round 4 of the 3-minute uninterrupted rounds. If you guys are okay with it, we will move on to the 5-minute round where you guys are able to actually have open.
Well,
discourse.
I have a quick counter if Destiny wants to agree to this for the purpose of fairness. I'm willing to do 2 rounds of internal critiques, and I'll allow Destiny to start with an internal critique if I can move to an internal critique after. So 2 5-minute rounds of internal critiques. Does that sound fair?
What do we mean when we say internal critique? What does that mean?
It means that I'm just here to answer your questions for 5 minutes, and you're here to answer mine.
Sure.
Okay, I'll let you go first.
Okay, so okay, just so I make sure I have this right, so I can moderate it properly.
That's a good thing. He's willing to listen.
Or is he going to question you, Andrew? And you're
Yeah,
gonna...
he gets round 1 5 minutes, and then I get round 2 5 minutes.
Okay, so basically, okay, so it's essentially a Q&A between the two of you where, okay, so our Destiny, if you're okay with that, we can do that, or we can go to just open discourse between the two of you where you...
I think I feel like I probably, because I feel like part of my argument is going to be that he hasn't put forth like a positive position yet for me to even attack or interrogate. So I'm not even sure what I would do on the Inquisition round. So I feel like it'd be better to just do back and forth.
Okay, well, if you want to do it in the back and forth, I'm prepared for that too.
Okay, but you guys are good with no more, you don't need any more 3-minute rounds to solidify your stance? No? Okay. So I will go ahead and set the timer here for 5 minutes. I guess, who wants to kick it off?
I can kick it off real quick. So,
Okay.
Destiny, would you agree with me that the motivation for demonizing the opposition political party often revolves around calling them traitors, accusing them of treason, and pushing for, some type of villainization that they are against the country, they are against you, they are against everybody?
For another debate, maybe, but that's not at all any of the subject matter here.
Well, I think it is. I think
Yeah,
it ties
it is.
in because I believe that the motivation for why you're claiming that the other side are a bunch of insurrectionists, though you have no direct evidence of this, and your own criteria.
He's giving it to him. That was a good thing. That was a helpful thing for him.
Criteria is just that of basically a riot, that your motivation is just to demonize the opposition.
Sure, but this isn't a debate over my motivation. I could be motivated by 100 million different bad faith factors, and literally none of them would be relevant to this conversation. It could be the fact that the DNC actually paid me money to give this precise argument, and Kamala's on the phone with me right now, and it wouldn't have any impact on this particular debate.
Why would you say that?
I think it would be. I think that the motivation for why you're making the argument itself would have
It is important, but it's not important for the thing he's thinking of. It's important because trying to distinguish like a motive or whatever, so you can understand why Trump did what he did, I think is what there's
impact on the debate. But I am willing to concede that if you just want to keep it to the material, we can. Let's move over to point 2 then. Point 2, you say resisting any law or interference with the course of a government proceeding wouldn't fit rioting itself. How does that not fit rioting itself? Of course it does.
Well, let's say, for instance, the purpose of a riot was because you felt like the law wasn't being enforced. It wouldn't make sense to call that part of an insurrection. Let's say, for instance, that let's say that there was a lynching of a person and you felt like the cops weren't, upholding their duty or whatever. And so you decided to have a protest that turns into a riot, and you all show up with the goal of protesting and rioting because you felt like the law wasn't being carried out here. You wouldn't really call that an insurrection because they're not trying to contravene a legal process. Just because, again, you engage in unlawful conduct doesn't mean that you're trying to resist, like the implementation of the carrying out, resisting the laws.
That would be the same case with insurrection then. Insurrection would also require intent, right?
Yes. Yeah, correct. Yes. So the intent would be the contravening of the Electoral Count Act. When people say we need to march and make our voices heard on January 6th to the Capitol grounds where people are going to protest, they're protesting the execution of the Electoral Count Act, which demanded that Vice President Pence count the electoral votes. Donald Trump didn't want that. He made it very clear in the days preceding. Him, Bannon, Eastman, Chesbrough, and everybody else that was working alongside him, Sidney Powell, everybody else, was saying that we need to prevent Pence from counting the electoral vote. That was the execution of a lawful government function.
But even if all
an act, and that's what people are going.
But even if all that's true, Destiny, it still wouldn't matter because the events of January 6th themselves, the intent of the people could have just been to riot, not indeed to commit to any sort of treasonous insurrection activity. And you have failed to demonstrate this time and time again, how this actually would meet the criteria of an insurrection. Them showing up, and just like your take in 2021, right? When you say, hey, look, the damage would have been way worse if they
know what it's giving? Sorry. It's kind of like when you're It's like when you're 17, you go to a house party and the cops show up and they write everybody tickets, even though some people are not intoxicated. Why? I don't know if it's the same thing. Maybe not.
It's shown up with the purposes of actual insurrection or some type of 1776 mindset. This is the most armed nation on planet Earth. How in the world can you say these people showed up specifically in order to do that? That makes no sense, man.
None of this law, none of that argumentation was secretary. People they obviously showed up to protest the certification of the vote. They were called there by Donald Trump.
If it's a non sequitur, then you in 2021 were using a non sequitur.
He just refuted everything he said in the beginning. Why don't you just call the cognitive dissonance?
When he made the argument that from the appearance of this, it could not have been an insurrection.
2021 Destiny was incorrect because 2021 Destiny didn't have the historical context to understand an insurrection. If you want to bring him on here and talk to him, you can.
I am
but
talking
I don't agree
to him.
with everything
You're
that
not,
I said.
you.
You're not. I am 2024 Destiny. I have learned more things. I have done more studying. I've read more papers and I've done more research on this. There is actually a strong understanding of what an insurrection is, and there was a strong historical understanding of what an insurrection is.
Okay.
And the idea that a bunch of people were called on January 6th, the date wasn't a mistake. When Donald Trump sent them down there to protest, when he said we need Mike Pence to do the right thing, what was he talking about? He wanted him to contravene the law.
That's a good point.
And that's what people marched down there for them to do.
Donald Trump said 30 minutes before this began that this needed to remain a peaceful protest on Twitter.
No, he didn't. He never said that.
He did. I actually have the tweet.
No, he didn't.
I have the tweet. He did. He did say that.
In the speech, he said to fight like hell. And in the speech, he said that we need to go
I'm talking
down.
about his tweets. Why would a person put out? Why would a person put out a tweet to be peaceful? If
Does he not know about the tweets? How Facebook took down shit?
Their intent was insurrection, Destiny.
Why would a person call a protest on January 6th? What do you think they were protesting?
What do you mean? They call protest. People call protests all the time. That doesn't mean that the purpose of the protest is insurrection.
He just said that.
Protest on January 6th.
The purpose of the protest was to go out and show support for Donald J. Trump.
For what?
Well, there was a variety of reasons. I think that
wait. Are you telling me?
I'm going to give you a variety of reasons. You can't say no. Are you saying there wasn't a variety of reasons why people didn't show up?
There's a lot.
No, I think there was one clear reason.
Oh, there's only one reason why everybody showed up.
Correct.
What? Okay. What is the one clear reason? There was not a variety of reasons. Some people didn't show up just because they wanted to see what was happening. Some people didn't show up just to support the president. Some people didn't show up because they really like to go to protest. Everybody showed up for one reason, right, Destiny?
I didn't say everybody showed up for one reason. I said they were called there for one reason, and that was to protest the certification of the election.
Guys, that is time. I'm happy to let this play out longer if you guys want, and add an extra minute to the clock. Are you guys okay with that?
Yeah, we can add an extra minute. I'm fine with that.
Clock, and this is still round one of the open discourse, but just try to limit it to 1 minute, and then we'll go into round two of it, and we can go from there. And if we need more rounds, at the 5 minute mark, we can absolutely do that.
Yeah, so I have a problem with him ascribing motivation to all. He says there's one clear reason why everybody showed up. That's clearly not true. That doesn't even logically make sense. He could never demonstrate in a million years that there was only one clear reason why everybody showed up. That's a
bring up the Democrats.
Nonsensical argument, Destiny.
That's not the argument that I'm making. If the debate is whether or not January 6th is an insurrection, not did every single person on January 6th engage in the crime of insurrection, or did every single person on January 6th go with the intent to
why did you say there was one clear reason why
I said that there was
up?
A clear reason why people were called there, because there was. Donald Trump called people there to protest not on January 5th and not on January 7th and not in a random part of DC and not in a random part of the country. He called them on January 6th to the ellipses that was less than a mile walk away from the Capitol building, which is where he sent every single person after his speech. He called them there on the day of the certification of the vote.
It's like Destiny is so intelligent, and it seems like, oh, you okay? It seems like he's walking back on stuff he said, but he's justifying it with like these long-winded answers. I need a snack, so I'll get you guys one, but I'm gonna let it keep playing. I need some fuel.
Tell us their motivation.
Trying to pressure Pence to overturn the
that
election.
Doesn't tell us their motivation.
That they need
Destiny.
to go and protest for the lawful slates of electors to be counted, the illegitimate ones that he submitted, and people who went
even
there.
If I grant your logic, it makes no
behavior,
sense.
And they managed to delay the certification
Destiny,
of the election, which
even
is exactly what they. So then, do you admit then?
No, I don't admit anything. Even if I grant your logic,
they happen to do every single thing that an insurrection called for without actually engaging in an insurrection.
Give me a chance to respond. So I not only do I concede nothing, but your logic.
We ran out of time on that round. So what I'll do is this. I can see that this is a dynamic conversation, and clearly it's going to go out the bounds sometimes of a time round. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and set the clock for 10 minutes. That completes round 1 of the open discourse. But I see that this is a dynamic argument. Me just stopping it randomly at 5 minutes would probably be stupid. So I'm going to let it play out. I'll put 10 minutes on the clock and have you guys go at it. Is that okay with both of you?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Destiny, are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, because I don't want to interrupt you guys again like that. So I'll just go ahead and put 10 minutes on the clock. And I will start it right now. You guys, you can pick right off where you left off.
Yeah.
And
so to respond, right, and I'll be more charitable with the time back your way now that we have 10 minutes, Destiny, but it's actually an illogical argument to make, to say, even if Donald Trump had some certain intent in his head, that would not mean that the people who were showing up for the protest had that intent. So the thing is like, for both ways, it's a double entendre for your own logic. Either one, you claim, wait a second, there's one clear reason everybody showed up, or two, no, there was no clear reason why everybody showed up. They had multiple motivations, even if Trump himself had a different motivation. This is illogical argumentation.
I'm sorry, but this would never be applied to anything. If somebody says, hey guys, we're all going to show
up,
not
an
so
argument
that we can
either.
Go and I'm making the argument right now. If somebody were to make the call and say, hey guys, we're all going to show up to go and blow this building up, and a bunch of people showed up, and then a bunch of them marched with the crowd, and then they all went and a building got blown up, we wouldn't say like, oh, well, we don't know what the intention of the crowd was. We don't know what the intention of the leader there was. We don't know what actually happened there, because we can't divine the intention of every single individual person.
That's a ridiculous straw man.
We can say that's, you can call it a straw man, but the idea that in order for me, okay, hold on. What would I need
So hang
to
on, let me
show
respond
then?
to your first argument, and then you wait. No, there's no spurging. Let me respond to the argument, and then you can ask.
You're not even letting me talk.
Bro,
you can respond to my argument.
You made an argument. Let me respond, and then you can ask the second argument. I think that that's fair. So when you're talking about this from a logical standpoint, when you say, oh, if somebody called and said, hey, we're all going to blow this building up, yes, I would agree that you could probably ascribe the motivation to it then. Can you show me a tweet or any type of anything from Donald Trump saying, hey, guys, show up, we're going to do an insurrection? No, you just made the shit up.
I can. Okay, fine. So I can. So as part of Donald Trump's speech, I'll give you 2 quotes. Our country has had enough. We will not take it anymore. And that's what this is all about. And to use a favorite term that all you people really came up with, we will stop the steal. Today, I will lay out just some of the evidence proving that we won this election. We won it by a landslide. This was not a close election. The first quote. The second quote, we must stop the steal. And then we must ensure that such outrageous election fraud never happens again, can never be allowed to happen again. When he says stop the steal, when they're at the Capitol building on January 6th, and when the election is being certified, what does stop the steal mean there?
Wait a second. So first of all, you're attributing to Donald Trump's rhetoric here something which he may not have intended. None of that actually shows or demonstrates that he was calling for an insurrection on the Capitol.
It was protected. Don't forget that speech.
You are just kind of ascribing that motivation onto it for the purposes of convenience. You have to show me there where he calls, like your example was, if I say we're all going to show up and blow up this building, that was your example, and then people show up and do it, we can understand their.
So essentially, Destiny's doing exactly what we anticipated based on the other debates, which is he's telling everybody why he thinks Trump did this, but nobody else believes it. Nobody. Like, be very cautious before you say you know exactly why somebody did something. I have to take my dogs outside. I am going to put the link in the chat to Andrew's page, and you guys can go directly there. I'm not sure how to do it the way that he does it, or it just sends you. So make sure you go over there. Like the video, comment, subscribe. We're going to cover the rest of it, but I'm coming. Okay, goodbye.